Warning, this video is not suitable for all ages. Viewer discretion is advised.
This series discusses sexual abuse and trauma. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is important to realize that the reason we were more susceptible to be targeted by this woman was because of our unhealed childhood trauma, as it created vulnerabilities which were used against us. For Maka, her childhood trauma was never addressed by adults, which caused her to develop memory loss of the trauma and PTSD. Maka then later on realized after exiting the cult she indeed had trauma which adults around her oppressed and suppressed, leaving her unknowingly vulnerable both as a child and as an adolescent. For Trish, her trauma was also suppressed by the adults around her, which made her believe that it wasn't important, therefore leaving her unknowingly vulnerable to predators. The reason why we both did not realize it was a cult in the early stages was because of the way we were approached and how this woman painted the message to seem as if she was sent by God to help us.
Hey guys, welcome to the TCK podcast. I'm your host, Maka.
I'm also your other host, Trish.
Yes, and today we're continuing on with the first part series that we talked about, which is why we stopped being friends. ... The cult is the problem. There was the problem. So we're gonna get into this episode. So get your tea, get your snacks, get somewhere comfortable. If you just like listening to us while you clean, that's cool too. Okay.
Bags. It's gonna be a long episode.
Yeah, so we're gonna be literally talking about. First, we're going to give you a bit of background story about us and why it will give you an idea of why we were more susceptible to, joining a cult. And we're going to also talk about in detail about the cult. And then we're going to talk about the era after the cult, which is what we're living in right now. Yeah. And
Part 1, Maka's background story.
I was raised by my grandparents from the age of 1 to 8 while my parents were overseas in Ireland. And they left me and my sister, who is 13 months younger than me. They left her at 6 and I was over 1 year old. But anyway, so I grew up with them, and in that household, they were, let's just say they were church elders. And I remember being baptized, she used to do it every year, which I didn't get. I think she just wanted us to be as clean as possible.
Wait, you guys got baptized yearly?
That's what I remember.
What? That's crazy.
I'm pretty sure it was yearly. Because we would have to, after that, we would fast and stuff like that. But, so that's the kind of household I grew up in. And then I also experienced trauma. Sexual abuse. I can't even say that with a straight face because
it's a safe space here.
I never wanted it to come out of my mouth, man. I feel like once I say it, people are gonna look at me differently. They're gonna be like, "Oh."
No, what matters the most is what God thinks of you. And to me, I love you and I see you. Your trauma doesn't define you. To me, you're still Maka Gonashe Dube. You were Maka Gonashe Dube before I knew about this, and you're still Maka Gonashe Dube.
Anyway, so my grandfather sexually abused me when I was young. From I'm pretty sure it was from when I was 5, between 5 and 8 or something. He sexually abused me from 3 to 5. And then I told my granddad, no. Leading up to the sexual abuse, there were weird things that he was doing, grooming me, which was when we were praying, because every night we would sit down and pray, and then he would lay his hands on us and pray, and then he would rub my back, but it never felt like a normal rub. It felt like it went on for longer than it was supposed to be, and it was very slow and very, over time you slowly think it's normal, And then another thing that I think the reason why he could do it and keep it so low key was that we were also in that, when you're little, from 5 to 8, you're still getting trained on how to wake up in the middle of the night and go to the toilet and not wee yourself.
Yeah, you're being
so they would take turns. Him and my grandfather and my grandma would take turns to take us to the toilet. But I never thought it was, I always remember feeling when I was young that it was unsafe for him to do that. It just didn't feel right because he was an older man, much older man. Because what we would do is we would have like a pot in our bedroom where we would wake up and then instead of walking all the way to the toilet because it was on the other side of the house. So I thought that was weird. I never felt like it was every time it was his day, I would always feel nervous and anxious. Because now I'm realizing this nervous and anxiousness from that age, I guess it was something that became normal when I was around him. So when I finally told my grandma, she basically, I trusted her because adults in Zimbabwe, you're expected to like trust them because by automatically every adult is knows better than you and should know what to do. So I trusted her, but her thing was like she said to leave it to her and to be quiet about it. But then the next morning, she made me like use the other toilet that's outside the house for the ones that we use for the lodgers, which was
Are you
like
talking about like a Blair toilet? Because my grandparents
a
had
drop
that too, like
toilet.
outside the, like,
A drop toilet. Yeah, that one.
yeah, they call it a Blair toilet, like, because there's like a hole. For those people who don't know, it's kind of like there's like a hole in the ground, and it's like this. It's gross, and it's also a shower as well, like the one my grandma had on my dad's
Because
side.
no, that one was good because they would shower on one side and then on the other side. So there was a wall, which was good. But anyway, she took me there, which you can imagine from a young age. You would think that it makes you feel like you are the person who did something wrong. That's what I felt like. Why am I the one being taken out of the house? And why am I the one being told not to wear dresses anymore? Or not to wear skirts? Or not to sit in a certain
It's
way?
kind of like when, trigger warning, when rape victims or sexual assault, sexual abuse victims come forward, they always ask the question like, "What were you wearing?" I'm like, "How? What's the point? What was the point in that question?"
I was literally
So I invited it because of what I was wearing, and you were a child. Like,
yeah, and
it doesn't matter if you were
why.
naked,
Guys, this
yeah.
is literally why I'm an advocate for wear whatever the you want because I did not get because of what I was wearing. I'll tell you that. I can stand on my and say that. And it doesn't make sense because
And you were a child. Was before puberty set in. Like,
I know. And then and then she was like, maybe the way you talk to men, you're like, because I was playful.
and she said that to you.
Playful. Yeah, I'm a playful person. She was like, maybe you shouldn't be this playful. Maybe you shouldn't like hang around men and stuff like that.
It's weird. I've heard you talk about this. This is my first time actually hearing this perspective. I don't think you've ever.
Yeah, she did that, and then I think it was a month or a few weeks later after she literally changed my whole wardrobe. Like I didn't have any skirts anymore, and if I did have skirts, I had to wear tights like underneath. But
yeah, so instead of calling the police and getting this man arrested, she says that you, a child, you're the problem and you need to change what you wear.
Yeah, I like what my counselor said because we were talking about self-rejection and she was saying she rejected what she was seeing in front of her to be the truth. So anyway, so she did that, and a few weeks later, she did this prayer thing. She made us go to a prophet and to pray over me, and then I had to walk in the forest or something to do something. I don't know what. It was just weird. I walked there and then I came back, and then she prayed again, and then I slept, and then she used to put this white cloth over me after that whole thing. I think she did that thinking that it would heal me or whatever. So
for those, sorry, I just want to explain for those who are not familiar with Zimbabwean culture or African culture, is like our culture is very, it's not really our culture, but the culture we were born into is very superstitious. So they do kind of mix a little bit of like traditional medicine, which is like witch doctor, and it kind of leaks into the church. So they wouldn't do like your normal fasting and praying Bible stuff. They will call it prophetic utuma porofita, and then they'll get a water that's been specially prayed for by this person who can hear God, and then they'll do these weird rituals and they'll say, oh, it's a God thing. So
Yeah.
that's what probably was happening to Maka. Like normal people would go to counseling, normal people would call the police and get that predator arrested. But in culture, it's like, we're just going to pray and God's going to fix this.
So you were saying this one question is very superstitious. So that's why she
Weird.
did all that, thinking that it would make me clean or whatever. But she didn't deal with the psychological and the actual effect. She didn't even take me to see a doctor because this man was sleeping with this man of other girls before me, and he was a headmaster at a girls.
And there was a family member that I heard who was young, like before that incident happened to you. And I remember confronting your auntie. I was like, so you guys knew he did this to another family member, and you could have prevented what happened to Maka, and you just like did nothing.
He literally is a headmaster. I don't know why. This is crazy. When I look at back, I'm like, this is insane. Anyway, so that's what he did. Meanwhile, she didn't do anything to
Actually,
him.
sorry, they made it sound like he had a lust problem. They were like, he just had a problem with like sleeping around with women. That's what I was told.
Women, children.
Yeah. Because he slept with the housemaid as well.
Toddler.
He slept with the housemaid. And I also
Not just
heard
the
that he slept
housemaid,
with your
it's also
grandma.
kids.
Your grandma's best friend, he slept with her too. Sorry.
So anyway, from that moment onwards, she didn't deal with the situation. And from what I've learned about trauma, my brain just, I guess, chose to forget about it because it was so traumatic. And then her not doing anything added to the whole trauma too. Because now it wasn't just that man, he doesn't deserve to be called my grandpa. But for the purposes of your understanding, my grandpa was just, she did nothing to him. It was only to me. Maybe I did notice they were distant a little bit, but she literally didn't even confront him or anything in front of me. I didn't see anything that had changed in the house. And I thought that she was also going to tell my parents. I really thought she was going to tell my parents. So that's why I actually, telling her gave me peace because I thought she was going to do something, but she didn't actually do that. The thing she did do, though, a few years later, because I think she noticed he didn't stop, she was like, okay, it's time to come pick up your kids now. Like, it's time for Maka and Tina to like go. And that's when my parents came and got us and we arrived here in New Zealand. The reason why this part of my story is crucial is that you get to understand why I am the person I am today, why I'm so independent, because I had to be from a young age. So I knew from a young age already that just because you're older, it does not at all. It doesn't mean anything. Well, it didn't help me, by the way. They were supposed to help, but they didn't help me. Just because you're older, it doesn't mean you're right. And it taught me to just be able to back myself up because I had to back myself up, and I couldn't defend myself because now I was faced with two predators. One abusing me, the other one oppressing my abuse. So I had to learn to stand for myself up. And then my mom's sister, which is Anesu, the person who we're gonna be mostly making a reference to in this video regarding the whole being in a cult thing, how she is in the picture is that she is my mom's sister. And by the way, before all of this abuse happened to me, they knew about it before I was even born, but they didn't do anything, like we're saying, to like make sure that this won't happen again. And the excuse, because when I finally told people and I started remembering, because when I was growing up, I used to feel like there's something that was missing, or some part of my puzzle of my life that I felt like didn't make sense. Or I felt like there's something that was wrong with me. Not in the way of I was rejecting myself, but I genuinely felt like I couldn't explain some of the behaviors I was having. Like, for example, I was having a lot of panic attacks. Like I would sit down and I would actually be like, and I wouldn't know where it was coming from. It didn't make sense because I didn't do anything panicky that day. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I was triggered back then and I didn't know it. So then I started praying. I was like, God, there has to be something wrong, because I had been praying um to get rid of fear in my heart because I didn't know where it was coming from. I had tried everything. And then I was like, no, God, there has to be something wrong. I don't know what it is, but you have to tell me. So that's when he showed me, and in a dream, he helped me remember what happened to me when I was young. And this was like when I was 19. It was in 2018. It was right after he died, by the way. That's when I started getting memory flashbacks of what happened to me when I was young. And then I sought out a counselor because I was like, there's no way I couldn't do it. There was a whole month where I was staying at this hostel. And I did not eat at all. I ate one meal a day, and that one meal was too hard to even keep down. And I got so skinny that I remember when I went to visit my sister Tino, um, she was like, Maka, I'm worried about you. You're really small. She was like, are you okay? And then I was just like, I told her what I was going through. It was hard, man. It was really hard. And I think it makes sense for you now to talk about your childhood trauma. And then,
Hearing it, it makes so much sense now, because remember in the first episode we talked about how you always feel triggered when someone use respect or try to pull age as a rank, because it's a thing in our culture too, like saying I'm older than you, and the way you were so defensive, the fact that there were these adults and because like they failed to protect you,
a
and I was like,
group of them
it makes
together
so
with
much
how many
sense
brains?
now.
With how many brains Night Trish altogether could not make a. Shakaoma, let's
I will
go.
also say the story I heard about the girl that got abused before you. They apparently they had a family meeting and they called all the elders, and yet they failed to stop the predator. I can imagine. I'm sorry, I know you're still continuing. I'm just thinking, I find it a miracle that you still believe in God or that you're still a good person. Like, you're one of the most empathetic, kind hearted people I know. And to think that your own family doesn't even understand how cruel they are is baffling to me. And then not only do they not recognize that they're cruel, even till to this day in how they treat you, they painted you as the villain. Like, it's almost like, yeah, it's almost getting to the point like, oh, because I remember hearing about it, and even she was saying like, we're so tired of Maka talking about her trauma. Like, we get it, it happened. Like, it's almost like, get over it. It happened when you were a child. Like, when do we have to endure hearing this over and over again? I'm just like, as somebody who understands to a certain degree and as your friend, I'm just like, the kindest thing that we could do is sit with you, because you literally live in this every day. Like, and you're sharing your pain, and people are telling you, they claim to love you and they say we don't want to hear it. You're literally doing exactly what your grandmother did to you. Like Maka, I find it strange. I never understood why God connected us. I hope it's not just because we shared a similar trauma.
Part 2, Trish says background story.
No, I don't think so.
Like Maka, I think none of this made sense until we actually discussed it as adults. I was obviously I don't live in Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe, and then I lived in Zimbabwe until I was 9 years old. So I'll get to the point. I have a similar story like Maka, but instead my mom's feet used to get very cold. So she had this like little fan heater. So we lived, I had an older auntie who was basically like a sister to me. She was like, I think 3 years older than me. So my mom used to make us like massage her feet. So she would be sitting on a couch, and then she'll put up her feet on like a little stool or something with a blanket covering her legs. And she'd be like, oh yeah, like, guys, can you massage my feet? Even if we didn't want to, we had to. So sometimes we'll either massage her feet in the living room or in the bedroom. And at times my mom would be like, come to the bedroom with me and massage her feet. So there were times she would ask me to not just massage her feet, but to like massage her down there. And it went even beyond massaging her down there. Sometimes she would be like, basically perform oral sex on her. And obviously I hadn't had sex education, so I didn't know what the hell that was. The only time I started to see something was off is that when I went to visit my cousin and my dad's side, I started asking him to do the things to me that I did to my mom. And I didn't even understand until I was older that something was off, because there was an incident again when we came to Ireland. I was 12 years old. Because, by the way, my mom never touched me. It was always me being asked to do it to her up until a certain point. Then she stopped. When I was 12 years old, I remember I tried to like touch her again, and then she flipped my hand away. She was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, let's do that thing that we used to do, like innocently. Let's do that thing that we used to do. And then she's like, no, we should never do that thing. And I remember, it's funny, I had like sex talk in school, but they didn't, you know how they don't get into detail about oral sex. So I didn't know anything about what oral sex is. I just knew there's penis. That was it. I remember being so confused. I was like, why doesn't she want me to touch her? We used to do it all the time. Like, I was that innocent, guys. And then she was like, no. And then she started telling me like I should pull like, dino flaps, because she was like, oh, it'll make you tighter. Like that was any more appropriate than the other thing. Because I look back, I was like, that was not okay either. Like, so that was even an opportunity for her to come forward and say, Trish, like, because I could see her mood changed. So I grew up in an environment where my mom was very religious, like Maka's grandfather. Like, she was not an elder, but she was somebody that in my household, right, my dad didn't go to church. He believed in witchcraft, worshiping Mudzimo, but he says he's a Christian, but he does believe in traditional medicine because it's about protection. And my mom was like, I'm a Bible believing Christian. So everything I knew about faith came from my mom. She was the one who took me to church. So can you imagine the person that teaches you about God was also your abuser? And the abuse didn't just, while the sexual abuse stopped at some point, there was a lot of like enmeshment. Like my mom overshared a lot of personal things about herself, marriage, even her sexual experiences with my dad and other men, the affairs that she was having. I was told about it and I was uncomfortable because I used to be like, I'm too young. Like at 11, my mom told me that my dad raped her, and that's how I was conceived. And I sat there, I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this information?
By the way, this woman lied about that.
Because the reason why we say, like, now I look back, because there's a lot of things that she exaggerated that I had to talk to my dad about, even though I've never actually, funny enough, if he ever sees this episode, yeah, that's what I was told. A lot of things my mom exaggerated because she hated my dad and she wanted me to take her side. Because you know how parents can get petty and then they put the kids in the middle. So I was very vulnerable when it comes to like things that have to do with God and leaders because my mom abused me. She was the only person that talked to me about God growing up, and my relationship with her, every time she would make me feel like I was like a demonic spawn because anytime I tried to assert boundaries, it was a bad thing. Like I'd be like, I'm uncomfortable with this conversation. I don't want to do this thing that you're making me do. And then she would turn everybody against me, saying, Trish is you know, she's evil. I don't know whose child this is. Like she's not kind. She doesn't know how to give. Like she doesn't love me. And I'm like, how will I love a person who abused me? There were times where my mom was sick because my mom has like a basically like she's been chronically sick, and there are times she's been in the hospital and I didn't want to visit her. And then she's like, what's wrong with you? I could have died and you don't care to visit me. And I remember I think you told me about this term, Maka, called disassociation. That's what was happening to me. I think I just completely disassociated from her to be like, and I think it's the saddest thing. Like, it's weird that your perpetrator was a man, and it was the only man. It was the only real father, which is weird, like father figure you've told me that you've ever known. For me, my mom, she's the only parent, the only family I've ever experienced. If somebody says to me, I have family, by the way, but I've never had a close relationship with them because I grew up here. My mom was here until I was 19 years old. So the only family member I had that I trusted violated me in ways that I'm still trying to understand till to this day. Yeah.
So how do you say that made you because we have to paint a picture, we have to get people to understand us before we got into the cult. That for me, it's now established that I was this outspoken, I don't care if you're an adult or whatever, I'm gonna say what I need to say. I was very
Yeah.
much for me because no one else was for me, you know? And then you, I think we're also getting this image that Trish didn't have family. So um she just had herself that whole time. So it's giving me that you literally it's weird when people say to you, I have a sister who has my back, because you can't comprehend it because of the fact that she took away that experience for you to have family that's meant to support you and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like, because when I tell people how the trauma shaped me, how would you tell them it shaped you?
I feel like I was the opposite to you. I think you would argue to say that I think I'm way more outspoken now than I was before because it made me very compliant. I think you noticed it like when we were in the group, like whenever Anna Sue would speak up, like I would argue with her a little bit, but then I would just become quiet. I'd be like, you know what, maybe she's right. What do I know? She's smarter than me. She's an accountant and she's 14 years my senior. And then you come and start fighting with me like, Trish, you're even older than me. Why are you just listening and taking whatever they're saying as gospel? Like we should question it. And I would just be like, oh, like for the sake of peace, I don't want to fight. Like I think that's what the trauma made me. It's like one
It
thing
made
about my
you someone
parents.
who was compliant without knowing that you were. Like, I think
Yeah,
you were fighting it. Consciously, you're fighting it, but
yeah.
subconsciously, at the end, the compliance would win. Uh,
Because I was beaten into submission. Like anytime
yeah, you
I
were, and your
showed
mom.
any time of autonomy, they would tell me I have no right to question them.
And I'm saying that your mom actually used words and she used your reputation to beat you into complying with what she wanted. Which is also what she's doing now, by the way. She's harassing her when she doesn't want a relationship with her mother. That's another kind of like, but that's basically what she's doing. She messaged a group of people to go and say Trish is not talking to me, da 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 da, find her. Like, no. To the people who are watching this, yes, Trish is gonna send this video to you and it's all gonna make sense. And leave her alone.
Thank you.
Jeez. So
I'm
now,
not harming anybody. I just want to keep to myself and just mind my business. I'm not harming anybody. I'm not even talking crap about my family. Like, I'm not sitting here and exposing them and their stuff. I'm literally minding my business.
they're actually causing harm to you. If you were someone who didn't have God, I think this would cause you to unalive yourself because now they're forcing you to have a relationship with your abuser. Like, people,
Best friend protective mode activated.
before you go into someone's lives and start telling them A, B, C, D, Trish, you should talk to your mom. Please look at yourself. Like, first of all, who do you think you are? And second of all, you're not God. You don't understand Trish's situation. You don't understand her background. You actually look stupid right now. Like, I'm so done. You need to leave her. No. Nonsense. This is not okay. I don't care whether you think Trish's mom is a good person. That's none of your business.
Nobody knows her. The only people that know her is me, my dad, and the people who are the closest to her, maybe my grandma, like, and some of our relatives. Anybody outside of our family, they don't know who she really is.
Now I'm seeing how
They
triggered
don't
it was
know.
when you were saying Maka, I'm spiraling. You're like, now I get it. I had forgotten about it. It's a trigger. That's a huge trigger, literally. So now, guys, it's important for you guys to have that image of us in mind when we start talking about the cult, because it's gonna give you insight to why we were more vulnerable to that.
Thank you for watching. Please continue on to part 3, where we expose what the cult was.